And I'm just so happy to be joining you again after having been away for a couple weeks. I heard all about Susie and Adrian's visits, and I listened to them on the post that Andrea posted on our Facebook page, or on our Facebook page. So I've been inspired along with you about the 7 factors of awakening and the paramis. And I understand, I didn't hear this, but I understand that Carol led a great meditation when Adrian was here. So thank you, Carol, for leaping in there. It's the Sangha. The Sangha is practicing. It's the Sangha together. So wonderful. And I thought for tonight, I would share a little bit about the retreat that I was just on and share some of the practices that we settled into for the week. And so it was a retreat that I was on with Guy Armstrong and Sally Clough Armstrong. And it was quite a special thing for me because they were 2 of my very first teachers in 2005 when I sat a couple months at IMS. I had practice talks with both of them. So it was a lovely connection with them. And the theme of the retreat was concentration, metta, and awareness. The themes were this concentration, metta, and awareness. And so I thought I would offer some of, a little taste of those practices tonight. And so the concentration practice, they offered it in 5 stages. And of course, we know that concentration might not be the best word. More like gathering, that sense of gathering ourselves together, gathering our attention into one place. Not concentration, which we often think of as focusing, kind of a narrow focus. Concentration, the gathering can be quite wide, but it's a kind of a sense of being settled in the self. And as we come to recognize this gathering or samadhi in our practice, we might recognize it more often than we know. And so they offered it in 5 steps or 5 stages, and we can kind of group the stages of concentration in 3 stages. And so I'm going to lead a meditation tonight in these 3 stages. And the first 2 stages are connecting and sustaining. In Pali, this is vitaka and vichara. And what this means is that we want to connect with one gathering place. And so just for my information, how many people here find that the breath is a gathering place? I'm going to ask the breath, body, or sound. How many people, if you put your hands up, just so I get a sense, no one else will see you. So the breath, and I'm just going to keep your hands up if you don't mind. I'm going to check the second page. Okay, and then how many people feel like the body is kind of your easiest anchor? Some people feel like maybe the body and the breath I'm getting. Okay, so maybe both. Yep. Okay, I'm just going to check the second page just so I can get a sense. And then who might feel like sound, like being very wide, is your kind of easiest anchor? Okay, so there's a few people that have sound. Okay, so when we connect, you want to connect with your easiest anchor, whether it's the breath. I'll invite connection with breath and body and sound. Connect with your anchor, and then see if you can sustain. And Guy and Sally recommended staying connected as best we can with they focused on or used the breath quite a bit, staying with the breath for half a breath. So it doesn't have to be a long time. Just connect with the breath and see if you can sustain the attention with the breath for half a breath. If you're with the body and maybe the breath is like a little bit in the background, see if you can sustain with the sensations of whatever part of the body or the whole body that you're with. Maybe again for like half a breath or just, a moment or two. And then the mind will probably go away. Bring it back gently, or when it comes back, just reconnect with your object. Maybe it's sound. So if you connect with sound, if that's your easiest anchor, just let yourself connect with sound and then sustain there gently without pushing, without striving. Just maybe you can sustain there just for a moment, just so you know, oh yeah, that's that sound, that rhythm, that volume, that texture. And then when the mind moves away naturally, just reconnect. And so this is the first two moves of the gathering practice, the gathering process, vitaka, vichara, connecting and sustaining. Some people like to say catching and holding. In that way, we're kind of settling back in a very receptive mode, and we're catching whatever is, we're receiving what's here and staying connected with it. This movement of vitaka vichara, connecting and sustaining, then can help us be, at least for a moment, here in this moment. And when we're here in this moment, even for half a breath, there can be a quiet kind of happiness in a way of, oh yeah, just this right now, just this right now. No big to-do list, just for this moment. There can be a little happiness in that. And then we might notice a little settling. And so I'm going to invite us to look for this, and that settling is kind of the third stage that we can look for. So the first stage is vitaka vichara. The second stage is there any happiness here? Is there any quiet joy here? Is there any little tiny bit of sweetness of being with this moment, present here? And then is there any settling? And so settling into our posture. This posture, which we want to be as relaxed and as easeful as, I want to invite ease in at the same time as being upright and alert. So this easeful alertness, inviting this ease in, inviting the wakefulness in. And we can scan the body and see if there's any places that we hold habitually tightly, and check the belly. Letting the belly, or inviting the belly to soften, relax. Sensing the shoulders, inviting them to soften, relax. And sensing the face. The face we can hold in a particular social way. Just inviting the muscles around the eyes to soften. Sometimes this can ripple across the face, and the whole face can soften. And then sensing the whole body sitting. Inviting the whole body to some ease. And then if the body is your anchor, just letting yourself rest there with the whole body or with a part of the body. Or you might feel the breath inside the body. It's rising and falling. Noticing that you can invite ease here with the breath as well as the body. Letting the breath easefully come and go. Connecting with the breath and seeing if you can gently sustain the connection for a half a breath. Or longer if that happens easily. Or connecting with the body sensations wherever you're resting the attention. And seeing if you connect with them for a couple of moments or a half a breath as well. If the body is your anchor, letting the breath just be in the background. Or letting the attention go wide to sound. Connecting with sound. And seeing if you can sustain until the sound changes or wanes or disappears. Just playing with some ease and some exploratory investigation. This quality, this movement of connecting the attention and gently sustaining. Without striving, just reconnecting again when the mind comes back from its movement away. And simply being curious and a little light, connecting and sustaining, seeing what happens with these intentions. Just remembering ease. This is a major support for the connecting and sustaining. The easier we can, the more ease we can bring, the more fully we can connect with this experience, with this moment. It's very gently connecting and sustaining. And then we can take a gentle look and see, is there anything pleasant in this? Anything pleasant this, in this simplicity that we've chosen for a few moments? And if there is, let yourself feel this pleasantness, however it shows up for you. One of the ways that pleasantness can be experienced is with a gentle, quiet kind of sense, perhaps of calming or settling or gathering. Sensing if any of that is present for you now, even a little bit, thinking back to when we began. Just being curious about that quality for the next several minutes of our sit. Just connecting and sustaining again and again with ease. Seeing if there is any pleasantness in this, or any sense of settling. And rather than ringing the bell, I just want to invite you to notice any settling, any stillness, any quieting. And just bring that with you. Let that be there as you open your eyes. Just feeling what that gatheredness might feel like with your eyes open. Just letting yourself sense any even small sense of settling. Some people can notice even in 30 minutes this sense of progression, or not progression, but this sense of process, this innate process that can be catalyzed as we connect and sustain with one anchor. And there can be a little bit of pleasantness in that, a little bit of relief, a little bit of the Pali terms are piti and sukha. And so feeling absolutely, I'm going to just slowly begin to talk and just feel absolute permission to stay with your eyes closed and simply listen, or open your eyes and let yourself rest in the sense of just presence in your body, in your breath, or in sound, even as you listen to the sound of my voice. So this process of gathering can be described in this collection of three processes: vitaka, vichara, the connecting and sustaining; the third and fourth, the middle part, is piti and sukha, or I like joy and happiness, or joy and contentment are the translations of the Pali, piti and sukha. The other translations, people use other translations as well, but I like those ones. And you might recognize those ones from other maps we've looked at in this group. Joy and happiness, joy and contentment are very often involved, and we can look for them intentionally. Let's see, and what flavor of happiness or contentment it might be present for you. It can be very, very, very quiet. And then the third collection of qualities in this process of gathering is the gathering quality itself, or the calmness or the stillness quality. And in Pali, ekagata. It's called ekagata. And so you may recognize these qualities. And one of the themes that, and we can actually bring this process of gathering, this process of concentration into our experience. We can cultivate it on retreat very deeply. And we can cultivate it, we do cultivate it every Wednesday night. And this sense of gathering is one of the doorways into supporting the mind and the heart to untangle a little bit. It's part of that mystery I talked about a few weeks ago. This process is kind of mysterious. We settle, and then that settling alone lets the mind untangle just a tiny bit. And so the settling is one of the doorways into untangling the tangle, which is one of the phrases in the suttas. Or as Guy Armstrong talked about a lot on this retreat, one of the doorways to the shift between the second and the third noble truths. The noble truths, the Four Noble Truths, are understood as one of the ways of understanding the heart of this practice. The movement from the first noble truth, which is simply recognizing that along with all the joys in life, there is also struggle and suffering. Not the first noble truth doesn't say that all of life is suffering. It just says there is some suffering here too, and it's not anyone's fault. It's part of this human experience. That's the first noble truth. The second noble truth is that how we relate to this normal part of life can exacerbate or compound the pain. If we struggle against this natural flow of ups and downs, we try to push the unpleasant away, or we dislike the unpleasant, or we try to manipulate circumstances so that they're the way we want them to be, that creates more struggle. And if we can find a way to release that, to be with experience with wisdom rather than grasping or aversion, then we can shift to the third noble truth, which is a sense of peace and equanimity in the midst of things. And this is part of what we can taste in this practice, this 30 minutes. We can taste a little bit of this shift from the second noble truth. Usually when I come to meditation, I've got some flavor of busyness, some flavor of tightness, some flavor of hanging on or constriction. Am I alone in that? Anybody else have that sometimes when you come to meditation at the end of a busy day? And I can feel, even if I'm not aware of having that at the beginning, I can feel very often a sense of a little bit of untangle, a little bit of shifting out of a little bit of constriction that I might not even have realized I had, to a little bit more spaciousness, a little bit more ease, a little bit less tangle. So Guy talked a lot about this shift, our practice being this ever-growing capacity to shift from the second noble truth, which is that we get tight, we can get constricted when we push against what's here, when we try to struggle and grasp for what's here or push away what's here. When we get caught in that tangle, moving from that tangle to the untangle, to the third noble truth, is really the movement of the practice. And the more we can practice this in small ways, the more we build the muscle for this in larger and larger ways. And so this was the theme of the retreat. And we took a look at concentration as one of the doorways to untangling the tangle, and also metta, this beautiful compassionate heart that can all by itself, the metta practice, the kindness practice all by itself can loosen the grip of grasping and ill will, because metta is a giving practice. It loosens the grasping and it loosens the aversion. And so metta is also another doorway that we practiced. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the awareness practice, but I thought I would share something that was an inspiration to me on the retreat with you right now. I'm going to share my screen. And what I'm going to share is a poster I made. It's just a homemade poster of inspiration for me. It's inspiration of teachers. And I think some people have seen this before, but this is a poster of teachers that are my teachers and are also then your teachers, because I don't know all these teachers. They're teachers of my teachers, but because I've studied their practices, they're my teachers. And so these are teachers, my teachers, and your teachers, and their teachers' teachers. And so I wanted to share this with you so that you get a sense of what inspired me this week and where some of these practices come from. And so you'll see that you are on this. Everyone here is on this poster. Can you see my cursor? Andrea, can you see? Okay, so right down here, you see, there you are, Saskatoon Insight Meditation Community. So everyone here is on my poster, and you could make a poster like this too. And so there's me. You'll recognize my little picture there. And then all of these folks are the North American teachers, some of who you know. Here's Susie, that was here last week. And Adrienne is here somewhere. If she's not, this is not my most updated one, so I apologize. Adrienne is not on here, but she's on my most updated one. So here are other teachers. I sat with Sally this last week. There's Gil Fronsdal, many of you know Gil. And Bonnie Duran, there's Bonnie. She's coming in October. She's my mentor in the IMS teacher training program, and she's really the only Indigenous teacher in our lineage, really. She's training 2 or 3 of us to be able to teach as well. And there's Joseph, of course, and Sharon, and Guy, and Kitty Saro and Tanisara, Aya Ananda Bodhi, Rebecca Bradshaw Dara Williams. She's the major force behind my teacher training. And so these are all the North American teachers. And I wanted to show you, here's Sayadaw U Tejaniya here. Now, you know, when I always say, or very often say, let's begin with ease. That's the teaching of Sayadaw U Tejaniya. Ease was not always in the vocabulary in the Dharma. When I grew up in the Dharma, it was a little bit more, ease wasn't really in the vocabulary. Now, many teachers are including ease because Sayadaw U Tejaniya has really pointed out that this ease is the proximate cause of being able to connect and sustain. If we strive, what happens. The musical instrument gets strung too tight. So this whole area here is the Burmese lineage. So Sayadaw U Tejaniya, Sayadaw U Pandita, Mahasi Sayadaw, and then his teacher, who I also don't have on here, Lady Sayadaw. Lady Sayadaw was the one who opened meditation in Burma. The Burmese was being invaded by Britain in the mid 1800s, and Lady Sayadaw was afraid that the monasteries were being razed and they were being destroyed. He was afraid that meditation was going to die out, so he opened the monasteries to lay people, and that's the reason that we have much of our practice now. We have a great debt, perhaps, to Lady Sayadaw, and then Mahasi Sayadaw took that practice and continued it. And Mahasi Sayadaw is the teacher that gave us the noting practice. You all know the noting practice. When you note in the back of your mind, oh, in, out, rising, falling. That's Mahasi Sayadaw. And that was his one of his major contributions, as well as many other major contributions. This is the Burmese. Now here we have the India, from India, Goenka, Munindraji, and Dipama. Dipama is one of the women who was really strong, really. Munindraji was her teacher, and he recognized in her that she had capacities that surpassed his. And so he taught her, not having experienced many of the practices that she was able to do, but he read about them. He was a master, but he didn't know all the techniques, but he taught her based on what he knew from the texts. And she was just an amazing master. Maybe if I do this, you can see closer. Is that true? So I love this picture. There's Deepama and there's Joseph Goldstein. They're holding hands. And you see how short she is and how tall Joseph is. And they just loved her. All of our teachers, Joseph, Guy, Sharon, they just loved Deepama. And then over on the other side, I want to show you another lineage that we have great gratitude for. Here is Thanissaro Bhikkhu, who we know, he comes to Saskatoon, Venerable Analayo, and Bhikkhu Bodhi. These folks are in the Sri Lankan lineage. Thanissaro is in the Thai lineage. All three of these, though, are these are our trio. This is our trio of translators. And this is why we have so many texts that we can read, because they've translated many of them. And now in the middle here is the Thai tradition. And this is a tradition that really influences Guy Armstrong, Thanissaro and Kitty Saro. And really, I realize after all this 4 years of teacher training, I knew it before, but now really even more so, that these teachers are really major influences for me. I would say the Thai forest tradition is closest to what I experienced in the indigenous teaching. These were forest monks who traditionally moved from place to place in the forest, very, very similar to indigenous travels here in North America. And Ajahn Buddhadasa is the one who really has an article called Nibbana for Everybody, that everyone can taste Nibbana, everyone can taste liberation. And Ajahn Chah, the same, that we can, he's very also connected to nature. We can learn everything we need to know to be enlightened from nature, he would say. And so that the Thai tradition really sees the potential for awakening in every being, in every one of us. They talk about original mind, Buddha nature, and that really resonates for myself and for Guy. And so that was another major major influence on this retreat. And so I want to talk a little bit now about this sense of original nature, this sense of our Buddha nature, the sense of our potential that everybody has, that really, as I say, really resonates for me and is very, very, very connected in the Thai tradition. It's very close also to the Zen tradition and also to the Tibetan tradition. And here is a quote from a Zen teacher, Chinul, and this is from a book called Tracing Back the Radiance. And he's going to talk about the original, what he calls the Buddha mind, the original nature, and then also our kind of human nature, the fact that we have strong habit energies and how to work with those. So he says, although one has awakened to the fact that one's original nature is no different from that of the Buddhas, the habit energies are extremely difficult to remove suddenly. And so one must continue to cultivate while relying on this awakening. Through this gradual permeation, one's endeavors reach completion. Hence, it is called a gradual cultivation. And so we gradually cultivate this original mind, this Buddha mind. We can have moments of more brilliant or more bright kind of connection, or small moments. There's a teacher who describes it this way: small moments many times. Small moments many times, Urgen Rinpoche. And so this sense of connecting with the Buddha nature, with our original mind, is something that I feel, and Guy teaches, and many teachers teach, is a daily practice, that we can touch into this sense of a glimpse of this peaceful mind, this original mind, every day. And so this practice of concentration, of settling, of touching any pleasantness, and then of the gathering, vitaka vichara, piti sukha, ekagata, this process of settling is one way of touching even a little bit this sense of our Buddha nature, our original nature, our settled, peaceful nature. And we can do this throughout the day. We can stop, we can connect and sustain with the moment. We can sense, is there any pleasantness here? And pleasantness, sukha, is the proximate cause, or the closest cause to gathering. So we can gather. And so concentration is one of these practices, of course. Metta is one of these practices. And then another practice that we looked at on this retreat was the practice of practicing with space. And this practice with space led us into the practice with awareness. So I'm going to offer this practice of space. And this is a practice that Doris has really brought to my attention also. Doris suggested this as a practice for us last spring as a nature practice. I'm going to read a sutta from the Buddha. And this sutta is the Buddha speaking to his son Rahula. He says, Rahula, develop meditation that is like space. For when you develop meditation that is like space, arisen, agreeable, and disagreeable contacts will not invade your mind and remain. I like to say, will not invade your mind quite so much, and perhaps not remain so long. But space is a doorway also into this little shift, perhaps this little shift from the second to the third noble truth, to a little bit of maybe a little constriction, to a little bit more spaciousness. And so I thought we could try that just as a little experiment right now. So sensing into your body, you can close your eyes and just sense your body. This is the body sitting. The sensations of your body. Perhaps the sensations of your body breathing. Just let yourself settle there for a moment. And we're just going to play a little bit with the developing a meditation that is like space. And just gently sense into your feet. This contact with your feet on the floor. And then gently sense the head, the face and the top of the head. And then gently sense, as best you can, the space between the top of the head and the feet. The sense if you have a sense of space between those 2 points. And just let yourself connect and sustain a little bit gently with that sense of space. And just being curious, is there a sense of space that comes from this noticing of the space between the feet and the head? And then what's it like to sense that? Is that any different than when you sense the physical body sitting? Is there any difference in your sense of the experience? And then we'll just experiment a little bit more. In your imagination, sensing the space all in front of the body. Just remembering, kind of in your imagination, the space that's in front of you between yourself and whatever's in front, between the wall that's in front of you. And then sensing to the right, sensing this sensing in your imagination, the space that's between your body and the wall to your right, this feeling into in your imagination the space that you can sense there. And sensing behind you, just imagining the space between you and the wall behind you. Imagining to the left, all the space between you and the wall to the left, and if you need to, if it would be supportive to open your eyes just for a moment and glimpse the space around you, feel free to do that. And then just close your eyes again and just feel into that space all around you. And just see what that feels like. Just connecting and sustaining gently with that sense of space all around. And seeing if there's any sense of shift in your experience. Any quality that comes in to your experience with this new object. And letting yourself gently sense the space that actually extends beyond the walls of the house. And sensing the space across the neighborhood, the space that's surrounding the trees and surrounding the houses and stretching out in front of you. Maybe just for a couple blocks, just kind of sense that space. And let your awareness be kind of fill that space, and sensing to the right, the space and maybe a couple blocks to your right, and just being aware of the space above the trees, around the trees, reaching up to the sky and across the yards of the neighbors. And sensing behind you all the space extending a couple blocks through the neighborhood. Just imagining your neighborhood and all the space. There may not be any big sense of it except for seeing it in your mind's eye. And then see in your mind's eye the space to the left of you. Imagining the neighbors, the space across the street, or the space between the houses, of the trees. Just letting yourself rest in this sense of wider space for a few breaths. Easily. And so coming back now to a sense of your body sitting. Just noticing if that meditation on space had any, what the ripple is on your experience, if there was any. Some people, each of us will have different resonances with all of these practices. Some will connect with and some not. For some people, this sense of developing meditation that's like space can bring a kind of a spaciousness to our experience, a kind of a little sense of a shift from perhaps a little, I don't even say tightness, because it may not have been a tightness at all, but it may bring a sense of an expansion or a sense of spaciousness. And this can be understood as one of the doorways also into a little shift from the second noble truth to the third. And we can bring this sense of space in as a way of cultivating or supporting a sense of spaciousness, a sense of letting go a little bit, a sense of a little bit of movement from the clinging of the second noble truth, the tightness, to the spaciousness of the third. So this space practice might be one that you want to play with. And then I'm going to just close with, or finally offer a bit of play with the awareness practice. Right now, sense the sense of space that you had, and just sense the space in the room. Just ask yourself, anywhere you can feel space, are you aware of that space? This is kind of a trick question, because as soon as we ask ourselves, am I aware of something, or is there awareness, we usually can say, yes, there is awareness. And so anywhere you sense space, is there awareness there too? And sense just your imagination, so all around the room, wherever there's space, is there awareness there too? And then ask yourself, can you stop being aware in this moment? Listening to the sound of my voice, or sensing whatever it is you're sensing, can you stop being aware? What this can point to is that you and I, there's something larger that is awaring. Not you, not me. Awaring is kind of just doing its awaring kind of thing. And just for a moment, tuning into this awareness, which is just awaring. Just for a moment can tune us into some sense of something larger than ourselves. And this can, for some people, be a doorway into another, that sense of shifting from the constriction, which can be this self kind of trying to, the movement of the mind to try to manipulate the situation, or have ill will, that sense of the self in the second noble truth, that sense of constriction can ease that when we realize, oh, there's this awareness happening that's not, it's just going on and I don't have to control it. It helps to ease a little bit of the of the constriction, of the tendency to constrict and try to make things happen. When we can sense a little bit of this awareness that's going on without us doing anything. And in some ways, we can rest in that awareness. That sense of, oh, don't have to do anything. Wow, awareness is just going on all by itself. And so we practiced on the retreat this sense of gathering, of concentration, in order to then have a bit of stability when we turned the attention to space, and when we turned the attention to this sense of awareness that is just awareing all by itself. Just like the breath breathes all by itself. And that can give us a sense of resting, can give us a sense of movement from the trying to control or constrict. Just knowing the breath is breathing all by itself can bring that sense of ease, that resting back. Space, contemplating space can for some bring a sense of ease or resting back, spaciousness, and for some, sensing this awareing that's awareing all by itself can bring a sense of spaciousness, a sense of a little bit of movement, a little bit of less constriction. And so those were some of the practices that we settled into, and each one of these is a doorway into release of the mind and the heart, into a bit more spaciousness, a little bit of release of the grasping and the ill will that can grip the mind. And so I'm going to just end with a quote from Ajahn Buddhadasa, whose image you saw there in the middle of the poster, Thai Forest Master. He's going to talk about awakening, this sense of awakening. And he says that we can touch this sense of awakening, this sense of original mind, this sense of Buddha nature in very, very small ways. Some of the ways we've explored in this talk and this evening, the way of gathering the attention and feeling settled, the way of metta, opening the heart to include generosity and to cultivate generosity through the practice of space and through the practice of awareness. So these are some ways where we can kind of let the ill will or the grasping or the reactivity in the mind cool down a little bit. This reactivity in the mind is referred to here, he's going to call it defilements. I don't love that word, actually. It's just these movements of the mind. I'm just going to edit that word as I go along. I'm not going to say defilements, I'm going to say these movements of the mind, these constrictions of the mind. Is that okay? These constrictions of the mind and the heart. So he's going to use the word nibbana. Nibbana means like the highest awakening. But for Ajahn Buddhadasa, we can touch this daily as a daily liberation practice in the ways that we've talked about tonight, and in many ways that you all will have your own ways. Begin to notice the times when that little coolness occurs, that little shift occurs out of constriction into a little tiny bit more ease. It says nibbana, nibbana is the coolness remaining, the coolness from the reactivity, the coolness from the tightening, remaining when the reactivities of the mind and the heart have finally ended. The Buddha called it the end of dukkha, meaning the exhaustion of all the heat provided by the reactivities in the mind and the heart. However much the reactivities are exhausted, are released, there's that much coolness until there is perfect coolness due to the reactivities being finished completely. In short, to the degree that the reactivities are ended, there will be that much coolness or nibbana. That is, nibbana is the coolness resulting from the quenching of the reactivities, whether they quench on their own or someone quenches them through the Dhamma practice. And even in this, when they are quenched a little bit, we can understand this, he says, as a temporary nibbana, something that actually nourishes the mind and the heart every day. He goes on to say that you might think I'm trying to sell you a bill of goods, he says. Although he says, you might think I'm trying to dye cats for sale. That's a Burmese saying, kind of like, slip the wool over your eyes. He says, dye cats for sale. But that's not the case, he said. If we did not experience temporary nibbana every day, he said, we would burn up inside. And so he says, our job is to begin to notice this temporary nibbana. And some of the ways we can notice it are, is there a settling here in this moment? Can I cultivate that? What happens when I play with space? What happens when I play with cultivating space? What happens if I rest in awareness? This awareness, it's always awareing. So we'll close with that, and we'll dedicate the merit of our practice. May the small temporary nibbanas, the temporary coolnesses which we all experience in our own ways, nourish our own heart. May our practice, may we begin to notice these small moments more and more every day. May we take refuge in our ancestors, in the lineage of this practice, and the encouragement of all of these ancestors to notice these small moments every day. May we invite ease into our heart right here, right now, and experience that in the body. And may our practice ripple out and be for the benefit and the liberation of all beings, all hearts, everywhere. Thank you, friends.